Hello, this is Simon Cowell coming to you live from the internet, and I'm here to critique this video game. Just kidding. Actually, my name is Starisen Kwok, but most people just call me Starry for short. What's up YouTube? Welcome to my channel. I am starting a series where I review video games that I have in my collection. The game I have selected for today is one that I have wanted to play for so long, and I am so incredibly thrilled to finally dive in and talk about this game. Now, I think most people might agree that 2020 has been a complete disaster for a year, but one of the best things to come out of this year, I think, would be Crash Bandicoot 4, It's About Time. An aptly named official sequel to the Crash N. Sane trilogy. Crash Bandicoot is a series that I have played in my days of yore, and thus one that holds a special place in my heart. Let me tell you, I have been waiting for literally more than a decade to play a brand new Crash game. I don't know about all of you, but I don't really get the point of remakes at all. It's basically the same game through and through, wrapped up with improved graphics and maybe a couple extra gimmicks, then re-released into the marketplace. Now, I understand that the Insane trilogy was meant to be a recycled introduction of the classic Crash trilogy to newer generations, but I am part of the OG. So I still have my original copies of Crash 1, 2, 3, which are all intact and fully operational. So I guess I'm just saying that while I appreciate the updated look of the Insane trilogy, there just wasn't enough value for me to essentially repurchase the first 3 games. So along came the first commercial announcing the coming of Crash 4, and I was absolutely ecstatic when I first saw it. I did not own a PS4 at the time, or any other gaming console that was compatible with the game, but I was willing to consider buying one just to play this game. There have only been a handful of video games in my life that have been compelling enough for me to buy a brand new gaming console just to play them, but you know, I had enough faith in this new Crash game, partially because the trailers looked promising, and mostly because the Insane trilogy and Crash Nitro Fueled were so well received by the public. Well, more like I was just so eager to play an actual new Crash Bandicoot title after what seemed like eternity. You know, it's been a long wait. So I got a PS4, bought the game, popped in the disc, and I noticed that the game was developed by a company called Toys for Bob, easily mistaken for Toys R Us. Now, I never heard of this gaming developer before, but I always played games for the fun of it and not by brand name recognition, so it didn't really matter. I was going to be open-minded either way. Right off the bat, I was given 2 different styles of gameplay, retro and modern. Now, the difference between the two is simply that retro style counted lives, whereas the modern style disregarded the life system and allowed players to try again at the last checkpoint whenever they die. So you can die as many times as you want in the modern playstyle and it wouldn't give you a game over or anything like that. The modern style was likely added to ease the levels for less experienced players, because we'll get into why in a little bit. Players can alternate between the 2 styles at any time, and I think this is a brilliant way to essentially let players tailor the game's difficulty to their liking. Being how long I played this game series, retro style was an absolute no-brainer for me, of course. Onwards to the game. The central plot is a continuation of Crash 3's storyline, where Dr. Neo Cortex, Uka Uka and Dr. Nefarious Trophy being stuck in time, still trying to return to the current timeline. Uka Uka creates a space-time rift that links to different dimensions in what is known as the multiverse, and Dr. Neo Cortex and Entropy leave an unconscious Uka Uka behind and escape from their temporal prison with desires for conquest. This represents a sensible deviation from the random introduction that Crash Wrath of Cortex gave us, which had zero connection to the plot points established from Warped. Therefore, the story in this game is already much superior to Wrath of Cortex's, a story that I will cover another day. Now, the player starts out on Insanity Beach with neat callbacks and Easter eggs such as a television screen that switches between the title cards of the original Crash trilogy. The first level is an awesome way to cruise back into familiar territory as the controls are tight and precise, jumps are fluid, and slide jumping mechanics are fully functional. Instead of a shadow, there is a circular cursor that appears underneath the characters, which I think is a very useful addition that allows players to know exactly where their jumps will land. Crash's moveset and Coco's have been scaled back down to the basics: the classic spin attack, slide kick, double jump, and belly flop. No other gimmicks, no other power-ups, at least that I know of. Now, the gameplay and the levels all feel just like classic Crash, where every obstacle is an instant kill, so controls definitely get an A+ from me. Now, if you are playing retro style, the life system functions exactly like the past. Collect 100 Wumpa Fruits and earn a life. Players can earn up to 99 lives. Wumpa Fruits are scattered throughout all the levels or are hidden within different types of Wumpa crates, such as singular boxes that give 1 Wumpa Fruit, question-marked boxes that give multiple Wumpa Fruits, bouncy crates that break with 5 bounces, and a giant golden Wumpa Fruit that gives a massive Wumpa Fruits at once. There are also crates with Crash's face in them, which automatically gives players a free life. TNT crates also make a return that give a 3-second detonation countdown when jumped on, and nitro crates that explode with contact. Exclamation marked crates make a return as well to activate outline crates, detonate all nitro crates in the level, or to turn on time crates. Time crates. Yes. Aku Aku masks can be obtained through breaking Aku Aku crates, which protects players from instant death. Acquire 3 Aku Aku masks and experience a burst of temporary invincibility, where Crash also moves slightly faster to a slick tribal beat. This game sees the addition of 2 new crates. A fire crate, which burns on and off every few seconds. Now, these are more of an annoyance to stall some of the box breaking, but I guess it works for what it is. The second new type of crate is the time crate, which materializes only for a few seconds upon activation before turning off and having to be activated again. These time crates are the bane of my existence, hands down, the most annoying to deal with, but does add a nice layer of difficulty to the platforming overall, so I get why they're here, I just don't like them. Per the classic tradition of Crash Bandicoot, no Crash game is complete without gems. For every level, there are 6 gems that can be collected. A box gem that requires players to break all the boxes in the level, a gem that requires players to complete the level without losing more than 3 lives, and a hidden gem that is usually located in hard to find places or in alternate routes in a level. Something I really liked in this game is that there is an incentive now to collect the Wumpa Fruits in the level, as players need to collect a designated threshold of Wumpa Fruits to attain 3 of the 6 gems. In the past, there really wasn't a point in collecting Wumpa Fruits if the player maxed out with 99 lives, because you can't go over that, but it is now necessary to collect as many Wumpa Fruits as one can in the levels to attain gems. Colored gems also make a return, and are acquired through arbitrary but fun means that add a layer of exploration and curiosity to the levels. For instance, in the level Hit the Road, there is a certain location where you can attain the green gem by spinning a trash can, then a remote controller to guide a RC car into knocking over a trash can with a gem inside. These colored gems unlock alternate death paths in certain levels that are necessary to get hidden gems. Collecting enough gems for each level unlocks a character skins that you can use to change the look of Crash and Coco Bandicoot. collecting all the gems in the game is necessary for 100% completion, so if you want to be a completionist, get ready to invest many hours of your life and your sanity in this endeavor. The other major collectibles are relics, which are attained by beating time trials. Yes, unfortunately, they are here in this game too, and the struggle has never ever been more real. Collecting relics for all the levels are required for 100% completion, and there are 3 types of relics, being Sapphire, Gold, and Platinum. They are more difficult to get in their order. I will preface this by saying that relics are an absolute nightmare in this game, and this is coming from someone who got all Platinum relics for Crash Wrath of Cortex and Crash 3 Warped. So, time trials have always been incredibly challenging because they require players to speed through a level under a vigorous time limit without losing a life, as there are no checkpoints along the way. On the first level alone, I remember rushing through the level at least 20 times, as I wanted to aim for a Platinum relic off the bat just so that I could get a sense of what it was like. And I didn't even get a good enough time for a Gold relic. I got stuck with a simple Sapphire. That really shows you that the time margins in this game are insane, and you will definitely need to know every nook and cranny in each level if you want even a shred of hope of obtaining a Platinum relic. Speaking about difficulty, if you were intimidated by levels like the High Road from Crash 1 or Cold Hard Crash from Crash 2, you have no idea what you're getting yourself into. The developers of this game apparently took a crash course straight from the infamously challenging level Stormy Ascent of Crash 1, previously known as the hardest level in all the Crash games at that point, and multiplied the difficulty by 100. Okay, maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but some of these levels are in fact much harder than Stormy Ascent ever was from my perspective, due to the new gameplay styles that I will be going into about. Interestingly, this game does not have the classic death routes like past Crash games, where players had to reach the transport platform without dying. To be honest, they didn't need them here. Think of Crash 4 as a game made entirely of death routes, because that accurately describes the difficulty, especially if one was playing the game for full completion. Getting box gems are often incredibly difficult because the developers often hide boxes in extremely obscure places throughout the level that require players to really explore every single inch. Some levels have points of no return that make it impossible to backtrack, and there is nothing more annoying than making it all the way to the end of a gauntlet only to discover that you missed 1 or 2 boxes at the very beginning and have no way of going back. Even if you are just going through each level just to progress through the story, some of these levels will have you scratching your head thinking of what to do. Basically, you will likely die. A lot. The platforming is very challenging and require great precision to navigate. This is why time relics are especially daunting in this game, as it is quite easy to make mistakes even if one has mastered the layout of a level or know it like the back of their hands. Not even the bonus stages provide much relief in this game. In fact, some of these bonus stages, such as the bonus rounds in Crash Landed or Stowing Away, are legit more difficult than the actual levels themselves. Even though you still won't lose lives messing up in bonus stages, they are no longer a cakewalk for players to farm extra lives like in past games. A lot of these bonus stages require critical thinking skills and clever platforming to get across the stage itself, or all the boxes for that matter. Now, instead of death routes, this game rewards players who make it through a level unscathed with a flashback tape, which can only be acquired if a player makes it to a certain point in the level without dying. These flashback tapes are fun little levels that show Crash and Coco in times before the events of the first and second Crash game respectively. So, if you expect difficult and richly creative, well-designed platforming, then this game has it in spades. Although this game can get extremely, and I do mean extremely, frustrating at times, I for one am always up for a challenge, so I welcome it with open arms. In addition, the aforementioned option to switch between retro and modern playstyles at any time alleviates some of the difficulty, so they surely get points for effort to make the game more balanced and accessible. Also, if you keep dying over and over again at a certain spot in a level, the game will provide you with Aku Aku masks after losing about 5 lives consecutively, or convert one of the boxes into a checkpoint crate so you don't have to tread so far. Therefore, don't say that the game does not take pity on you, but Aku Aku only goes so far, as the masks won't be helpful if you keep dying because you can't get across an abyss. Least, the game does have a certain degree of sympathy, but you definitely cannot be deplorable as a player. Still, the extreme difficulty of the game in general is very hard to surmount at times, even for veteran Crash players like myself, especially for things like time trials, so it could be very overwhelming to newbies who are totally unfamiliar with Crash Bandicoot. Thus, sad as it may be, I must give difficulty and balance a B+ at best. This game features a huge ensemble of Crash Bandicoot characters such as Dr. Engine, Dr. Embryo, and even Nitrous Oxide as a cameo, even though I would have liked for him to be a boss. And get this, there are 5, yes, you heard me, 5 total playable characters in this game. You can play as Crash Bandicoot and Coco Bandicoot, who is identical to Crash, unlike the bargain bin version of Crash that she was in Wrath of Cortex. Gender equality has definitely come a long, long way, you guys. You can also play as Tanya Bandicoot, who loses his stereotypical buxom blonde damsel in distress look in exchange for a more tomboyish, edgy action girl kind of look. You know, I really like her style and character in this game, as she is this independent and adventurous woman who is on her own quest through time to connect back to her alter ego in the real universe, who I assume is still the slut that she was. I'm kidding. Her controls clearly took inspiration from Nina Cortex in Crash to Insanity, with the grapple and wall hopping mechanics. You can also play as Dr. Neo Cortex, who is ironically the pacifist of the group, as he converts opponents into stone or bouncy jelly platforms with his ray gun instead of outright killing them. This dichotomy with his nature is such a clever design, although his jumping controls are easily the hardest to work with. Another intriguing thing about playing Cortex is when you die, Cortex glows red and sprouts devil horns instead of turning into an angel like he did in Trinsanity. And in what may seem like a dream come true to many avid Crash fans, you can now control fan favorite Dingodile for the very first time. Dingodile was always such a cool and badass character, probably because he was a hybrid dingle crocodile chimera with a flamethrower, like duh. Instead of a flamethrower, however, as that would be OP, Dingodile here is instead equipped with a vacuum device that sucks in crates like a frenzy and allows Dingodile to briefly hover in the air. The vacuum device even allows Dingodile to suck in TNT barrels and to launch them at enemies or obstacles like a projectile bomb. This is a new gameplay style in Crash Bandicoot, and I had so much fun playing as Dingodile in his levels. Although I enjoy playing as all the characters, Dingodile might just be my favorite. In addition, his levels are probably the easiest and a great way to farm for additional lives due to the sheer number of crates in them. In this game, Dingodile is simply trying to travel through time in hopes of returning to his own dimension after being sucked into the time rift so that he can expand his restaurant chain. His humorous nature really shines through in this game, and he is rough around the edges and not afraid to use curse words like bastards! No, I can't do it yet. His Australian accent will no doubt be an inspiration to many. As for Crash and hence Coco themselves, I really appreciated how Toys for Bob took inspiration from elements in past Crash games, such as the rope swing and wall run mechanics from Crash of the Titans, and incorporated them into this game to enhance the experience. This game also features rail sliding sections for Crash and Coco, which harkens back to a little game series called Sly Cooper, of which I will also be talking about in the future. For Crash and Coco, this game features interaction with 4 new masks called the Quantum Masks that all have their own personality and abilities. I will simply refer to them as the Quantum Quartet. The first mask of the Quantum Quartet, named Lonnie Lowly, gives the power to switch platforms on and off from intangibility to solid ground. This is the very first mask recruited and adds a lot of tactical thinking when navigating a level, such as timing the switching as to land safely on platforms, pass through dangerous hurdles, or to reach higher ground. Lonnie Lowly is very nervous and uptight, paranoid about everything, and freaks out constantly like a person with schizophrenia. Akano is the second mask acquired on the journey, and he grants the power of dark magic that allows the player to glide across long gaps in the air like a spinning helicopter. The mask also allows players to reflect projectiles by enemies. Akano never really says a lot in this game, but he does utter some charming one-word sentences here and there, so I assume he's a rather deep mask, but just not one who talks a lot. The third mask is Capunawa, who bestows the player the power to temporarily slow time around them, including enemies, obstacles, and platforms without slowing the player's speed. In fact, this power even allows players to bounce on and off nitro crates, provided if time is slowed down. Of all the masks, Capunawa probably has the best design in my opinion, as I love how they incorporated all the phases of the moon on the crown. Personality-wise, Capunawa speaks with much wisdom and is rather witty with jokes, but seems to be rather optimistic in contrast to the trepidation exhibited by Lonnie Lowly. And last but not least, we have Ika Ika, which gives the player the power to reverse gravity and essentially flip the screen upside down. This reverse gravity mode is tremendously innovative and an ingenious addition into platforming, but definitely takes a lot of time getting used to. It is a learning curve knowing when to switch from reverse orientation back to normal orientation, and this feature is what makes certain levels like Crash Landed exceedingly difficult. Ika Ika is also the most unique of the 4 new masks, as he has split personalities. One side that is cheery and optimistic, and another side that is apparently cynical and pessimistic. In addition, a couple of classic villains make their return in this game. Dr. Engine is back and still as unhinged as ever. This time, he seems to have developed a certain affinity to rock and heavy metal music, as his boss battle will suggest. Speaking of which, the boss battles in this game are all very well done. All of them provide a nice challenge and require the player to utilize new skills acquired from donning the new masks. Like I did, you might find yourself dying a few times during each boss battle before figuring out the rhythm of each fight, but it's rather easy afterwards. Embryo once again returns as a deranged mad scientist with all his eccentric flair and a little less of his trademark stutter. He brings with him a slew of new shape-shifting potions that he utilizes to fool the player, particularly in his boss battle that bears an uncanny resemblance to his first boss fight back in Crash 1. It was fun seeing Embryo again, especially when he would pop in and out of lanterns with little pieces of dialogue sprinkled throughout the levels in his domain. Dr. Entropy appears as the seeming main antagonist of the game. That is all I'm going to say for now. Not since Crash Bandicoot Entranced has Entropy had such a significant role, and this time he has a female counterpart of himself whom he is madly in love with. In terms of character development, I love Entropy's development in this game. Creating an identical female counterpart and watching him flirt with her constantly was a brilliant way of showcasing Entropy's apparent narcissism. The two versions of Entropies are smug, ruthless, and playfully sinister. Their boss battle was very fun, necessitating the player to master Capunawa's time-altering abilities, as well as Ika Ika's gravity-defying abilities to beat them at their own game. Aside from all the villains, Polar also makes a return in the snow levels as a ride for Crash and Coco, while Schnergles serve the same role in the alien dimension. Tiny Tiger and even Ripperoo make much welcomed cameos in the game, although I really would have rather seen them as a boss battle. Overall, I love the diversity of characters that they were able to place into this game. Instead of wasting most of the cast as pointless filler and level obstacles like Crash Rapid Cortex, this game allows plenty of moments for each individual cast member to shine. One thing I especially loved in this game was that every single level had a skippable cutscene to introduce them, which connects the levels with each other in a rational order instead of having it be a random selection of unrelated places like past games. This harkens back to the hub design of Crash 1, which I think makes the levels feel much more cohesive. In addition, the cutscenes feature more of the 5 playable characters, which adds so much to how they perceive their environments or each other. Therefore, in terms of the character roster and development, I give this game an A+. Toys for Bob were clearly going all out to impress, and it shows. The levels in this game are filled to the brim with beautiful set pieces, rich saturated colors, and set in captivating environments. A feast for the eyes to retain player engagement for sure. From the serenity of Tranquility Falls to the industrial mechanization of the Junkyard realm to "Aye, you shot me. More! Ha 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 ha! Apologies, your majesty, but ye shall be forgetting the swashbuckling goodness of the pirates' realm. Ships out in the high seas, trapped between a barrage of cannon fire, hopping across bloody waters, crawling with hungry sharks, dueling rats on barrels of gunpowder, taking a broadside to the kraken named Louis, just to find a treasure trove of goodies. So what now, Shack Sparrow? Can you survive the salty wharf? Ha 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 ha! Thank you, Captain Barbossa. Anyway, each dimension has its own set of traits. The fauna for the prehistoric levels were fearsome. The alien world was simply magic. Crash Landed is probably my favorite extraterrestrial level designed in this game. It looks like a warped, twisted dimension of Finding Nemo, especially with the bale of migrant turtle-like creatures and the abundance of coral reef structures. The level Offbeat is another favorite level of mine for referencing Mardi Gras in New Orleans, and for how it seamlessly incorporated so many musical elements into the level. There are also these things called inverted levels, which are simply levels that are inverted with an alternate art style for all the levels in the game. These alternate art styles range from a watercolor palette to a color pencil to vaudeville style film featured in the inverted level of home cooking, for instance. Just like regular levels, there are 6 inverted gems that a player must collect for the inverted versions of each level if they want to be 100% complete with this game. So the levels in this game are also noticeably longer than levels in past games. This is truly annoying for completing time trials, but other than that, I have always enjoyed longer Crash levels because the fun lasts longer. Enemies and obstacles fit the themes of the levels, the amount of detail is impeccable, and each level is uniquely designed, which is such a refreshing change from the recurring environments seen in past Crash games. I guess you could say that the levels where you tag team by playing as one character for one half of the level and then transition into another isn't unique from going solo into the same environment, but those don't count because it is the game's way of showing how a character's action in an alternate timeline influenced the path of the ol level. For instance, in the level Dar He Blows, The player starts off as Dingodile and eventually comes to a halfway point and explains how the gates get blown up in the level Booty Calls, where you would then finish as either Coco or Crash. All in all, the designers truly outdid themselves in terms of art style, so an A++ from me. Now, there are some recasts in the terms of voice acting for this game. For instance, Debbie Derryberry does not reprise her role as Coco Bandicoot for this game, even though she's always been the trademark voice for Coco Bandicoot. Even so, the voice acting is phenomenal across the board. Everybody does a great job. Characters sound exactly just like how they look, notable mentions being Dr. Entropy, Embryo, and Lex Lang reprising his role as the cutscene and sometimes blundering Dr. Neil Cortex. So an A+ on casting. The music for this game is again well composed with a lot of catchy tunes that are suitable for the respective environments. The tracks have this classic wacky and light-hearted sound that defines Crash Bandicoot and really helps to set the tone for each level. Particularly memorable for me was the music for Dragging On and Run It By You, which affects a sound reminiscent of the Delta Blues. So an A+ for music. Now, I love how they stuck with the traditional old school platforming that takes Crash Bandicoot back to its roots. It works. The jetboard was one of the few vehicles featured and brings a nice change of pace to the game without taking away from the main focus on platforming, as they are only in short sections in some levels. It was the first alternative vehicle deviating from the traditional platforming to be featured in Crash 2 Cortex Strikes Back, and so it was likely included in this game as an homage to the original trilogy. This game features a return of rider vehicles in the form of Polar and Schnurgle, who are every bit as hard to control as they were in Crash 2 and 3. So if you were planning on just passing through the levels to complete the story, you'll get through these sections with relative ease. Shouldn't be too hard. But if you want to be a completionist and torture yourself, you will have to hit every crate along the way while riding these two, and I hope you have a lot of time in your hands, because you'll be spending quite a bit of time. The box placements for these rider sections are utterly ruthless, and you have to ride your creature perfectly to hit them. To succeed without clairvoyance here, you will need to know exactly how the path goes, so that you can set your path up to nail all the crates as you breeze by in high speeds. These creatures cannot reverse or halt in the middle of these sections, so you will definitely find yourself committing kamikaze against a wall or off a cliff if you so much as miss one crate and want to get the box gems for these levels. So best of luck to you, and stock up on lives, because you'll need them. Now, I actually like the vehicle levels, as I am one for variety, but I really appreciated how Toys for Bob were very conscious about not going overboard with vehicles in this game. Being able to play as 5 characters is already good enough for variety. So vehicles like Polar or Schnurgle could use better, much better controls and more forgiving box placements. So overall, I give vehicle utility in this game a B+. Damn you, Polar and Schnurgle. Damn you. Spoiler alert. Now, if you don't want to know about the story in advance, skip to... Okay. Cortex and Entropy escape through the time rift created by Uka Uka and create a rift generator to travel to other dimensions in what is known as the multiverse. Aku Aku, all-knowing and omnipresent, transports Crash and Coco to the multiverse, find and recruit all 4 quantum masks that control time and space. Along the way, they stumble upon an alternate ego of Tonya Bandicoot, who wants to get back to current times, and Dingodile, who got sucked into the multiverse and is also seeking to go back to modern times so he can boost his new restaurant chain. Entropy and a female counterpart of himself then betray Cortex and want to take over the multiverse for themselves, forcing Cortex to join forces with Team Bandicoot to take them down. Team Bandicoot eventually recruits the Quantum Quartet and they defeat the 2 Entropies, following which they travel to a food-themed city for a celebration where Cortex betrays the group eventually and kidnaps Capunawa. They go back to the year of 1996, which is during the events of the first Crash game, so he could attempt to erase Crash Bandicoot's existence. Team Bandicoot followed Cortex into the past and defeat him before he could stop his past self from creating Crash Bandicoot, so that ensures Crash Bandicoot's existence. The Quantum Mass then banished Cortex to the ends of the universe, and the heroes return to present day after fixing everything in the timeline. Uka Uka then shows up at the very end of the game with Cortex, and I assume that's foreshadowing for future games. The end. For a Crash game, I thought it was a really good story that handled the immensely challenging concept of time travel really well without getting tangled up by the details, because it's really easy to get quite convoluted with anything that involves time travel, believe me. Lest we forget the atrocious excuse of continuity that was presented in Crash Wrath of Cortex's answer to what followed the events of Crash 3. So, this story gives closure and now leaves an open ending for future development. In addition, the writing overall in this game is quite nice. It has a lot of character, it gives a lot of humor, and it's also charming. So, A for the story and for the writing. Overall, Crash 4, It's About Time, easily earns a high A in my book. 96 out of 100 if you want a numerical score. This is an excellent game that is almost perfect but possesses a few issues with difficulty that could discourage some people. Bottom line, this game will challenge you if you are willing to take it up. So in my honest opinion, this is the best platforming game that I've ever played in my life. I'm not exaggerating, it really is. It is definitely my new favorite Crash game, and one that I will be playing for many hours. So if you are a fan of Crash Bandicoot, then this game is a must-have. Go out there, get it immediately if you haven't. Trust me, you'll have a blast. Even as someone who hasn't played Crash before, I highly recommend that you give it a shot. There are so many things to love here. I'm just thrilled to see that the Crash Bandicoot franchise has been revived and is now thriving. So now I just patiently await the same for Sly Cooper. Hopefully not in vain. If you like this video, subscribe to my channel Starry Network and turn on your notifications. We have plenty of other creative videos such as comedy, impressions, skits, music, poetry and more for you to check out. Thank you for listening. Until next time, I bid you all farewell. Wait a second. I actually meant to say, I thought the whole game was a joke. It's too bloody hard, I couldn't beat it, and so I feel cheated. And I want my money back. And that's my last word. Thank you. Shut up, Simon. Nobody cares about you or your last words, so you can it. And learn how to use a controller first, will ya?